Welcome to another episode of The Fabric of America. My name is Matthew Banover, owner of Bards.
And I am Melissa Otto, owner of DeMellis Atelier.
Oh,
we're back.
Goodness, it's about
Huzzah.
time.
It's about damn time.
Just missed sitting with you.
I know.
And chatting with you.
Summer got real fast.
It really did. The summer be summerin'.
Summer be summerin'.
I was having this conversation with a friend the other day, and I'm an avid lover of Bob's Burgers.
Yes.
And there's this one picture that I see all the time that's always like, it's the kids talking, and one of the girls, Tina, was like, I hate summer. And they're like, Jean was like, there's too much pressure to have fun. And I was like, I feel that so much. Like summer, it feels like you're wasting it if you're not doing something all the time.
Doing something outdoors and fun that's not pertaining to work.
Exactly.
Yes, I hear that. Especially when you have kids, man, that takes on a whole new level. Because it's like, oh, you got to go do stuff.
Yeah.
You got to go be doing things.
You got to be splashing in the water.
No, I want to. Believe me. Wouldn't we all not work if we didn't have to?
I know. It's quite frustrating.
Let's go back to the barter system.
Yes, exactly. Just tear down the
straight
system
up.
completely.
Just straight up.
So you were looking quite comfortable.
Oh, well, thank you. This is my TLC pajama outfit.
Yes, that. I need, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need my own set.
Yeah, you kind of do.
Lounging.
It would be a little weird, though. I'm not going to lie. If you and I were both sitting here.
Yeah, well, one of us has to change. I
love it, though.
Yeah.
Maybe keep that at home.
Fabric of America branded pajama sets.
Amazing.
Yeah,
outstanding.
All silk. So where did this come from?
Okay, so this outfit came from Poshmark.
Okay.
But it was born out of, so quick backstory is that, I go and I work weddings sometimes. And one part I love about it is that when we are kind of steaming and getting attire ready for rehearsal dinners or things like that, day before, day of, I get to check out like all these cool brands that maybe I didn't otherwise know. So this one, I don't know the proper pronunciation. It's like Alemas. Like I'm going to show you the tag because it's got massive Alemas. I'm not sure. Sorry to the general public. Butchering that name, I'm sure. But this girl had this beautiful linen, super printed dress with that tag in it. So when I had gotten back to the hotel that night, I'm like, I'm going to Google this. Yeah. And when I did, not only did like different variations of that linen dress come up, but all these like silk kind of twin sets came up. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. Like I don't want to pay full price. Yeah. So I hopped on to Poshmark. Yeah. And I found a woman who was selling several different pieces, including this twin set. So it's short sleeve, little silk, and it's real silk.
Okay.
And it's printed all over, and I love it. It's a little wild, and it's right up my alley. And so I wound up buying a linen dress in like a slightly different print than the girl had, and then I bought this silky twin set. And I just saw, and I don't know if this goes right over your head, but Bethany from Real Housewives has a variation of this exact set, which made me feel like I'm there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You've made it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You've done what you need to do.
I did what I needed to do.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
this
and
outfit,
I've got...
how do the kids say it?
Oh, God, you're going to do it, aren't you?
This outfit...
Skibbity.
This outfit eats.
Ate and left no crumbs.
Yes, that.
Okay.
I don't know what the tense is. Ate and left no crumbs. That is it.
Thank you. That's very affirming.
My
I
friend
appreciate
Alyssa
it.
would be very proud of me.
Oh boy.
I'm always, every time I have a nice outfit, I'm like, is it eating? And she's like, stop.
You make it awkward. You made it weird.
I try.
You made it weird, but thank you.
As only I can do.
As only you could do. And so I've got my Hawthorne watch on that we talked about on one of our previous episodes. I don't know if I wore these shoes yet.
I don't think so.
I feel like I did. No, I didn't.
Think so, no.
So I got Valentino Rock Stud pumps. They're like a cool pink. They're super comfortable for being like a really high stiletto heel.
Yeah.
But I also got those on Poshmark. So all these things on Poshmark were new.
Yeah.
They were never worn. Someone was selling them for less than full price.
Wow.
So sweet victory.
I've never done Poshmark.
I love Poshmark.
I know. I need to start.
I love it.
I need to do it for like outerwear.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So that's the thing. I love outerwear.
Okay.
That's like my vice. I'm just like
that. I have a lot of coats too. I feel you on that.
I feel like
Coats are
once
a
you
thing.
start, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, what if it's 61 and raining? What if it's 61
What if it's
and
62
cloudy?
and raining?
Yeah,
I don't know.
like,
You might need something totally different.
exactly. I'm like, yeah, well, it's
Oh,
so true.
God.
Like, I'm like, I got a raincoat without a hood. I need a raincoat with a hood. I need a fashion raincoat. I need a
You're
raincoat that goes over a jacket.
very
I need
silly.
a raincoat that goes over a sweater.
Okay. And that's your thing, huh?
It's brutal.
But what about your outfit now? What's going on here?
My outfit is a little bit more casual. So I'm in vacation mode. So I
Okay.
packed to be away for a week, and I packed one nice outfit. And
Okay.
this is kind
And
of
that's what you brought to the table today.
Okay. So my shirt is one of my own, Bard's. This is one of the first casual shirts I made for myself. I really dug the pattern. So it's like a burgundy base with different shades of blue floral. So, and it's got the American roll collar. So
Yeah, I like that. I'm noticing your collar was very different than
So
something I
a lot
would
of
expect.
times when people hear that I make custom clothing, their first comment is, well, I never wear suits anymore. And I'm just like, well, neither do I.
Right.
So custom clothing doesn't mean suits. And then I talk about custom shirts, and they're like, I can't remember the last time I put on a tie. I'm like, neither do I. I have like 4 ties. So this collar, the first button is this one lower down here.
Yep.
There's no button up here. And so I want to show people like, look, I can't even wear a tie with this shirt, even if I wanted it. So it shows that it's a little bit more casual. I like that it's called the American roll collar. So it's nice. It's big. It's got some flair to it. These pants, I've always wanted a pair of white pants.
Okay.
I never could find one that I really liked. Same thing with like white shoes. I get them. I scuff them once. I'm like, this is why I don't do this. So this pair of white pants are from JT Gamo in Hartford.
Oh, nice.
Yep. I love it. It's a nice pair of 5-pocket pants. I think they were made in Italy. And then the shoes, I'm wearing like a pair of like driving loafers.
Yep.
Yep. And these same thing. I was like, I like the look. I've never really dug the shoe because I have very high arches. So loafers don't always work for me. But I got this pair and they're good. They're not the best quality, but I needed something kind of middle of the road because I use these a lot for driving, for the purpose of driving.
They're serving their function.
Yeah, they are. But I'm definitely abusing them. So I think I need to reinvest in something a little bit better. But it's kind of a, beach chic.
I dig it. You're doing well.
Thank you.
You're doing well.
Just trying to keep up with you.
It's hard. I know. I know. Set that bar high, man.
Absolutely.
Well, so today's episode is going to be all about you, sir.
All about me.
Oh, it's all about you.
This
For
is so
probably the
exciting.
only time
I've
in
waited
the whole
for anyone to ask.
in the whole series. This is all you get. So,
This is it. So
buckle up, my friend.
Listener, take notes. And you'll just refer back.
Yes, that's it. So you're probably not going to talk for the rest of forever on this podcast. No, I'm kidding.
Buckle up.
There you go. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning because your origin story is very unique.
Yes.
Really. So I want you to tell the listener about your birth story, really, like that far back to birth. And I want you to get into, after you kind of give us like the facts part, I want you to tell us how you think that has shaped who you are.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Get deep, my friend.
So we're starting with a softball. All right. Well, Melissa and listener, when a mommy and a daddy love each other.
I hate you.
Even though that comment's probably going to get me canceled. So I was adopted. Am adopted. Did I ever stop being adopted?
You never
happened
stopped.
once.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am adopted.
Yep.
I think that's the correct tense. I'm adopted. I have 9 siblings. So my parents had 5 of their own, and then they were basically like, that was cool. Let's do that again. But let's do that differently. And they decided, let's adopt. And they realized that they had the means and the desire to help and give back. So they wanted to adopt. They knew that that was the path to go, and they decided let's go to the country that needs the most help, and let's stick in this hemisphere. So in the 80s, that was Honduras. It was basically a failed state. So my parents flew down there, found like this orphanage that was falling apart, found these two kids, one boy, one girl, that were basically just dying. And they were like, yeah, these will do.
You're such an ass. That's not
and,
true.
And they were like, yeah, these will be fine. And so they started the adoption process. My mom actually got like trapped down in Honduras for 6 months.
What?
Because a war broke out. And my dad had to go back because he was like, well, we do have 5 other kids to take care of. So he left. My mom got stuck down there with 2 newborn babies. She didn't speak a word of Spanish. The hotel she was staying at, the staff actually had to like hide her in the walls to protect her from like the rebel army.
Wow. I'm so glad I asked this question. I didn't even know those details.
All she could ask was like for like Coca-Cola, por favor, like more soda and stuff. She had these 2 screaming babies. So my sister and I were not biologically related. We were just adopted at the same time. We were raised as twins. I'm 4 months older. Love reminding her of that. And then so then after that, a couple years later, my parents went back, adopted another girl from Honduras.
Same orphanage?
I don't know. No, different orphanage and different process.
Okay.
They started to adopt her, but I think my mom was like, don't want to get trapped down here again. So she was like, let's put her in a foster home for a bit, and then we'll come back when the paperwork is all done. That was like a whole difficult story. And then somebody from the Haitian adoption agency got a hold of my parents and were like, we have this kid here. She needs medical attention. And we hear that Dr. Bandiver is a surgeon.
This is your dad.
Yeah, my dad. And so the Haitian government was like, we can get her to you. If she stays on this island, she's going to die. And they found this baby in like the trash. She had this huge tumor attached to her. My father did the surgery, saved her life. It was like an 8 or 9 month recovery. After the recovery, they're like, all right, you can send her back. And my parents were like, nah.
Oh.
Yeah, which is why all of our names are like, Matt, Emily, Becca, and then my youngest sister's Nadia. She's the only one who has a unique name. Because she was a foster, they kept her name.
Gotcha.
And then after that, my parents went back and were like, Matt's outnumbered by all these girls. We need a boy. They went back years later to Honduras, and they ended up adopting a boy. And they found out during the process that he was my biological brother.
What?
And my parents told them, they're like, well, we adopted his older brother like 7 years ago. And it was only by chance that we found this out. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So my brother and I are biologically related.
Wow.
Yeah.
And 7 years apart.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I was 8 and he was, I don't know, 6 or 9 and 7 or something like that when he came.
Okay.
So he was older, he like had memories and everything like that, and still does. So he's been back to Honduras a couple times because he like, remembers it. The rest of us were adopted.
Oh, so your parents adopted him when he was older?
Yeah. Older.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So there's not 7 years between you. He wasn't a new. I got you. It was just 7 years since the adoption. Okay.
Yeah. So it's funny because like it's always difficult kind of trying to explain my children in the family, because we're always like, he is younger than my sister Emily, older than Becca and Nadia, but the last one adopted. So I'm always like, do I go?
Okay,
it's
what
like
an order.
Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. Do I go in release date or
yes, gotcha.
So there we go. We got 10 kids. And my adoptive parents are white, and their 5 biological are obviously white, and then 4 Hispanics, and my youngest sister is black. So grew up in a very multicultural family. My mother, who is like through and through Irish, did her best with like cooking enchiladas and shepherd's pie, giving us
amazing.
giving us as much as a
That's awesome.
diverse upbringing as possible. And it really, race has always played a huge part in my life. I grew up in Farmington, Connecticut, very suburban, very white. Then I was, oh God, there's so many like little details. So in like 5th grade, my parents decided we're going to do a hard stop on public school and we're going to start homeschooling you.
Okay.
And so they take the 5 younger ones out. And my 5 older ones had all gone to Hotchkiss, like a private school.
Yeah.
And they decide we're just going to homeschool you. And if you ask my parents on a different day, they'll give you different reasons why it
Interesting.
happens. Sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's the weather, sometimes it's bullying, whatever. So we had taken out, we started getting homeschooled, and it started out as you would imagine homeschooling, like reading Huckleberry Finn in the front yard. And like, it was very basic. And then my parents, who are extremely educated human beings, my father, like I said, is a surgeon. He went to Yale, he went to Tufts. My mom was of the first women who graduated from BC, the first class of women. So very, very, they value education. And, when we got to high school, they were like, there's some things we just can't teach you, like chemistry and these other things. So they looked for a way for us to do this. So we started going to like these youth group things. And in the 90s, homeschooling was so rare. And we found like a couple of those, religious type of youth groups, and it was all like, well, Jesus gave you this pie and cut it into thirds, so you have 1/3 of this pie.
Okay.
And my parents are like, nah. And we grew up very religious, but they were like,
they wanted it separate for your education.
Yeah. So then my parents finally found Tunxus Community College. You could just take classes without enrolling. And they were like, that's what you're doing.
Interesting.
So 14 years old.
At Tunxus.
Sitting at Tunxus Community College amongst all of these other college kids and older people also. Because at community college, there's people from all over.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky that I had facial hair pretty early. So I kind of blended. Yep. But then my sister Becca and my brother Nick, they started going. They looked younger for sure. And 14, 15, 16 in this community college, taking courses, which was pretty cool. Then we started taking courses at Trinity College. So then for sophomore, junior, senior year, I'm homeschool, Tunxus, and Trinity, taking courses all there.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was wild.
That's insane.
It's a lot of driving just for everybody because all of our class schedules were all different.
How do you put that on a proper college application?
Yeah, exactly. It was wild.
That's really cool though.
Yeah, it was very cool. But then I just started to to round out with how it's informed my life is that I started to realize that people made assumptions about me and my life. Like they would see me, say I was working at, a retail store in West Hartford that I did for 10 years or something, a couple different stores. People were always fascinated by me because I don't look like a Matthew Banifer.
Yep.
So people would be like, where are you from?
And you knew.
Yeah.
You knew what they were getting at.
Point where I know exactly what they're like, make it make sense.
Yeah.
Why do you sound the way you do? Why do you look the way you do? Why do you present the way you do? And I was like, wow, people really, they have this assessment of what the world is, and you need to fit into their narrative of what the world is. And when I would tell them, it finally got to the point where I would be like, I'm adopted, my parents are white, and they were like, that makes sense. And I was like, don't love that.
Yeah, that was rude.
Don't love that. And the other part people would be like, oh, you're adopted. If you've been back to Honduras, you should like connect with your roots and your culture and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why? Like, I'm like, I ask people all the time, I'm like, I was 4 months when I was adopted. I was like, have you gone back to the hospital you were born in and like connected with your roots? And they're like, why would I do? I'm like, exactly. I was just born there.
Yeah.
That's it. I've spent my entire life in Farmington, Connecticut. Like,
those are your roots.
Those are my roots. This is my
Interesting.
family. It doesn't feel like my family's my adoptive family. It's like I'm just as close to my siblings as you are with yours. So there was this concept that just kept coming up of like, when is something 100% what you say it is? Like my relationship with my family, like, are these my siblings or are they my adoptive siblings? Like, is there that divide? Is there that threshold? But also like, what is normal to people? So for me, my normal is having 9 siblings of 3 different races and being homeschooled and going.
I know, don't you kind of hate that word normal?
Yeah,
like I've kind of grown to hate it. Like, so common, sure. Like, what's my common?
Exactly.
What do people think is the average?
Yeah.
But normal is the worst word.
It really is, because I've gotten to the point now where I love getting in fights with people about like, when people always say, oh, well, a normal person would do this or a normal person. I'm like, what's normal? Tell me what normal really is. And I'm like, can you give me examples of normal? People who are normal. And they never can.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's like love or jobs or how people emote. A normal person would just come back and relax after work. I'm like, who does that? Name someone who does that?
I totally hear you.
A normal person in a relationship does this. Who does that? Tell me.
Yep.
And it's gotten to the point now. And one other thing that was really cool was in my formative high school years, freshman, sophomore, and I guess some middle school also, I love the age that I am because of how technology played a big part.
Yeah.
So AIM came out and it was so cool in retrospect that I would be able to sit there and talk to my friends and not have the perspective of, I don't know what it's like to walk into a high school cafeteria and like figure out where to sit or something like that, or high school drama or whatever, any of that. But
so real quick, I'm going to backtrack though, just because the listener might not know what AIM is.
Oh yeah.
So just real quick, it's a messenger service. It was AOL Instant Messenger. Where it was like texting before texting, but you did it on your computer.
Texting on
so
the
you would
computer.
just, when you type a message, send.
When you would go to the internet.
Yes. When you would like
to log
dial
on
up.
to the internet.
Yes. Okay. So now carry on. Yes.
Yep. So I would like talk to my friends when they would log on, and I got this sense of just like what people were doing with their lives, and it was so weird. I felt like I was like watching life happen. I was like, all these friends are going through these different things and I'm not going through this, but I know all these friends. And so talking to different friend groups from who went to all girls school or all guys school or whatever, public school, huge public school, small public school. And I'd be sitting there, I'd be like, just like kind of intaking all this information. So what I got to really start to have a love for is people's stories, and like it made me less presumptive about somebody. I started to be like, I would meet people and just be like, so tell me about yourself, rather than I assume you come from a normal background.
Because isn't there always a surprise? And that's the best part. Exactly. There's always a surprise to everyone's story.
So it really informed that of just like, there's nothing that I can logically make an assumption about your life just from looking at you. And it really got to the point where I was like obsessed with like people's stories. And that's how it really informed, because people were always shocked about my story. And I'm like, well, I'm shocked about yours.
Yep.
So why there's this element that people are always going to make an assessment about how you look, and then they're going to try to connect with how you were brought up and connect the two and make it make sense. So that's why it really informed like this whole love of stories, because I was like, everybody has this unique story. Like I love the word sonder, which is the realization that everybody has a life as wild and as expansive as you. The person that you're sitting next to on the bus has a life just as complicated and just as perplexing as you, and life problems just as crazy as you do. Like that understanding, that framework of just, there's nothing unique and special about me that isn't unique and special about you. And so it really helped that out. I remember this one class I took at Tunxus. It was a Spanish class. In that one classroom, it was probably split up into that was my stomach, listener. If you heard that.
Amazing.
So we can edit that out in post.
We're not going to, though.
Yeah, no, I actually turn it up.
You be you. This is your unique story, my friend.
Exactly. This is my journey. So in this one class, it was probably split up into thirds. A third of the class was college kids taking a language course. A third of the class was adults who were going back to school for something. I remember one lady, she worked in Hartford and she wanted to connect with the people. So she was taking Spanish. One guy was a priest and he was like, I'm here and I need to connect with the people of New Britain. One guy was he was on his 4th master's degree because all 3 of his two of his sons were killed in Afghanistan, and his 3rd kid was like a paraplegic and was living at home. And so and his wife had passed away from cancer or something. And he's like, I just go back to school to like pass the time. And then this other adult was, he was just going because his company said, we'd give you a pay raise if you learn a second language. And then the other third of the class was me and my siblings. All 4 of us were in this one course. And I was just like thinking like, this is crazy. Everybody's here for such a unique reason. But then it's just like, that just snowballed to like, everybody is so unique. And like, there's something special about everybody. And there's no sense of normal out there. And we need to stop kick this whole concept of like normalcy to the side, because it's so limiting to
it's the perfect word to describe it.
It's so limiting to our ability to take in life experiences by having our own arbitrary benchmark of what normal is.
Yep.
And
your opinion of what normal is completely informed by your story and your experiences. Yeah. So
not other people's. Yep. And yet you're constantly putting it on other people.
Right. You're trying to get them almost to fit in your box or your perception of what that is.
Yeah. It always has to make sense. People need to say like, why is this racially ambiguous human being in a suit? His name's Matt. He doesn't have an accent. Like make something.
They want to add it all up some way.
Like, but like, why? Why does it have to make sense?
Yeah.
You know, so that's what really got me started on this whole. People need to just accept the fact that it's not what's behind door number 1. It's that there's this whole massive universe of experience behind every single person, and just stay open to that. To answer your first question.
Amazing.
Yes.
Which is a perfect segue into my second question. Well, so you kind of already started to go there a bit with, obviously your business with Bards is completely centered around people's stories and how people are presenting outwardly through clothing their unique story. So how did that come to be, though? And I will also want to include the question of like, where did the name Bards come from? Because I don't think the listener knows necessarily where you pulled that from. So I want the story about Bards, the word, and Bards, the business.
Gotcha. So I'm a huge history buff. Medieval history was my original love in college, and then since then I've gotten really into American history. And I wanted to be a history teacher, and then I got into retail, and I realized what I liked about teaching is what I liked about the idea of being a teacher is what I like about selling clothes. It's this concept of selling. It doesn't matter if I'm like, here's why you need these facts or here's why you need these pants. The concept was the same. And so I really loved that. And if I could do that at a higher level, that it was serving a good, then I was very happy to do that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Serving a good.
Yes. So the thing that I think I cite the most in when the universe like clicked together and I was like, oh, I'm really interested in this, was there used to be this show called Inside the Actors Studio.
Yeah.
And it was James Lipton, and he would sit down and interview actors about their process at an acting school at Pearson in New York. And it was basically podcasting before podcasting existed, because up until that point, the only time you saw celebrities were for 7 minutes on a late night show. You didn't really get anything. And now this guy was doing these deep dive conversations and like really getting into it. And I remember a lot of them, the actors would end up like crying because they would get into like really dark parts about their life. And hearing these people talk about the times they failed and how they don't feel like they're adequate enough, and talking to people, even after you won your whatever Academy Award, they just still felt like, I'm still nervous.
It's so humanizing, isn't it? Right?
I was just floored. I would watch these all the time on repeat. And the number one person that stuck out to me was Conan O'Brien.
I love him. Oh,
Conan O'Brien has truly been one of my biggest inspirations of my life. And watching him talk, that was when I learned that he went to Harvard, how he's so hyper intelligent, and how he uses his humor. He loves to be the center of attention, and in a way where it gets everybody to kind of be disarmed. He's like, if I'm making fun of myself, everybody else feels safe, and it bonds everybody. And he was like, there's so much to make fun of him. He always says that he's like a 6'6" Hungarian woman, or like and like all of these different ways. And I remember him talking about his physicality. He was like, I realized if I hiked up my pants and, tucked in my sleeves, it could elongate my limbs. And that was the first click of physical appearance playing a role. And I was like, wow, this is so cool.
Interesting.
And then when I'm also really big into movies, and I got into costume design and just like the love of that. And I was like, yeah, there's nothing more essential to telling a story than the costume design. I mean, you turn on a movie, if you see a bunch of top coats and top hats and newspapers, you're going to be like, all right, this has got to be in the 1920s or something like that. Like, there's just something so transformative about costume. And it's like, wow, okay, so yes, it's so blatant there, but it's almost so blatant on film, it's hard to make it applicable to everyday life.
Sure. We feel like everyday life is like inconsequential because we're in it, right?
Yes, but
you could look back at any time style wise and say, oh, that's the 60s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's from the 80s.
Right.
Like, you know exactly the period.
And you hear about these people using style like women with like the bra burning. It's like, what? That's style. That's fashion. That's that rebellious stage of like even the 50s and 60s when you've got kids wearing t-shirts, and it was like, oh my God, it was the birth of the teenager.
Yep.
Was through style, was like, oh, you're not just Johnny, the little kid, and now you're going to wear a suit and go to work. Now you're in jeans and a t-shirt and a leather jacket. Like, what are you?
Right.
This whole concept. It started to really kind of come and show itself. And so when I worked at Express, then Joseph A. Bank, then this boutique store, I started to put together this realization that it didn't matter if you were a high school kid coming to me for back to school shopping, or a lawyer trying to make it in the firm, or a venture capitalist millionaire. You all came to me because you wanted to present yourself in a certain way.
Yep.
that's when I was like, okay, there's something to like this whole style presenting yourself. And in 2019, when I was trying to put together this business plan, it, this is going to sound so cliche, but it really, I was like, I was thinking about the what to call this business, and I knew that I wanted it to be around like storytelling or something. And I was like, all right, there's got to be something. So I was living in Farmington at the time, and I remember going on like thesaurus.com and like typing in storyteller and style and storytelling and just writing down all these words and having a sticky note and just like sticking them on my ceiling. And it was an arch ceiling. So I'd like look up at it and I had like 20 different words on it. And I was just like, it was one night, like two in the morning, I'm like spinning around and I'm just like looking at these words of like storytelling and an MC and these different concepts. And then this word was like not in the center, but it was off to the side and it was a bard. And I was like, I like that. There's something there.
I think you should have gone with MC.
Yeah, I know, right? So I was like, I like this whole concept of like a bard. It's different, it's fun, it's unique, and
timey.
I was like, it's got a nice kind of like oomph to it.
Yeah. It's also not a common word, so you kind of have to stop and go like, what is that?
Yes.
Where did that come from?
My first concept.
So the storytelling word has a story.
Yes. So my first notion was like, yeah, it's not an easy word. And when I told a couple people about it, I'd be like, oh yeah, my company's, or I was thinking about the word bards, and people would be like, bards.
Yeah.
Like they'd stop and didn't know. Was there a D? Was it bars? You know, because with our accent, we don't really pronounce a D, and so I was like, well, I kind of like this whole like hard to remember, hard to forget notion of it. And so I looked into it and it was like bards were storytellers in medieval times. So after the fall of the Roman Empire in like the 1100s, there was pretty much no civilization. Like people couldn't read, there was no communication, there was nothing keeping people together except the few people who could read would basically travel throughout the land and tell of what's going on. They were almost like the newscasters. And they would say, the king did this and his heroic tales, and they would sing songs. And that was really what kept culture together, the storytelling of what other people did. And a perfect example of a bard is if you watch the show The Witcher. There's a guy who has a lute and he sings songs about Henry Cavill's character. And so I like this whole concept of like telling stories about other people. So I was like, well, that makes me a bard. And then when I was thinking about how do I make this accessible to other people, I don't want it to be, because I wanted this to be about a custom clothing. I don't want any inventory. I want this clothing to exist because you want it to exist, because you're worthy of it. I don't want to be like, well, here's my amazing clothing. Is your life good enough for my amazing clothing? I wanted it to be very much about you and your story. So I was like, well, my mission statement is to tell your story. My mission statement is tell your story. Because I wanted it to start out with me telling your story. And then once you have the understanding of how to do this, you're telling your story, which is why it's bards with
an F.
Plural.
Yep.
Because you will then be your own bard telling your story. And when people write it, often they put the apostrophe, like it's an ownership, and I'm like, there's no apostrophe, it's just plural. And I feel like I should always carry like a Snickers around with me and show them like, look, see, there's no
Snickers with
yes, there's no apostrophe S, but like one Snicker, it's like, who says that?
Yeah.
So, whatever, like 20 years down the line, it'll be fine. It's just branding right now. But so that was why. And I loved it. I remember reading George Washington's biography. And he, in a couple times, talks about getting his portrait done and having people write stuff about us. And he talked about the importance of having a bard, having somebody who can tell your story. And I was like, oh my God.
You really love George Washington, huh?
George Washington.
That's your boy.
Is everything to me. I absolutely love him. My favorite fact is always that George Washington got his inauguration suit made in Hartford, Connecticut. Like, there's so much about it. So then, yeah, everything just started like falling into place. So that's where it all comes from.
I love it. So now we're going to go deep, my friend.
All right.
I want to know why this all matters to you.
Ooh.
Boom.
Yeah.
Mic drop. I'm out.
Right.
You just sit here and marinate on that, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Why this as in fashion, this as in stories, this as in...
All of it, my friend. What's your story behind the question? What's your interpretation of the question?
I feel that people deserve, need, are required, want, and should be championed more for the little aspects of their life. I've always found that people try to contextualize themselves, diminish themselves, compare themselves. And I think because my life is so unique, it's very easy for people to look at my life and say, but oh my God, you did this and this happened and these things. And I'm like, it's just as amazing as what you've done. I'm just as fascinated with how you made it through life with no siblings. That to me is mind-blowing. To me, it's easy to think about having 9 siblings.
Listener, Matt is not talking about me directly. I have siblings.
You as the general you.
Yes.
Or 1 sibling or 2 siblings or parents of divorce. Like those things. I'm just like, what? That's so fascinating. That's so incredible. And I've always found that I want people to really understand how incredibly unique they are and to stop putting themselves down with this sense of normal. Well, a normal person would do this and a normal person would do that. And why? What purpose is comparing yourself to normal? What's the good in it? What's the greater good in it? It's only to tamp down something, your ambition, your sorrows, your whatever. And I can't stand it because it's so incredible, the fact that we are alive and the fact that I get to exist at the same time as you. And I feel like
you're welcome.
Yes, exactly. This is your world. I'm just living in it.
That's facts, but go on. Keep talking.
And I feel that I have, for whatever reason, I have this ability to draw out and use language to... I feel like what I do is sell people back to themselves.
Oh, I love that.
I love...
That's some AI shit right there. Sell people back to themselves.
I love hearing about you and then pulling it out, showing you what I see.
And then letting you wear it.
Yes, and then letting you wear it, letting you see it. That's what I love. Is just
that's cool.
Getting into what people are, because a basic example would be like if somebody called you beautiful and you're like, well, that's just your opinion. Why is that? If that is my opinion, why is that less? I'm saying it. That should be enough. It shouldn't be just because, oh, that's your opinion. That's how I see you. That's how I view you. It's just like, if I see a beautiful sunset and I say that's beautiful, well, that's just your opinion. Like, why is that a less than? And I think that a lot of people do that to themselves of like, well, my boss said that I did like a good job, but like, whatever, he just says that, it,
You
there's,
have to say that.
there's
You're my mom. You
always
have to
things
whatever.
where
Like,
people
yeah.
are like, yeah, but
They take it back down.
Yes,
Yeah. It's like as if you're not worthy of the compliment or something beautiful.
and I'm like, let's put this into context. Let's framework this of like, you did this, you overcame, you used your skills, how incredible is this? Like, and I don't think that enough people really give themselves the credit they deserve.
That's so true.
And I know that they know that. And that's what I fight against.
It's like people need permission, and you kind of give them that permission.
Yeah.
I think we walk around very sensitive to like, you don't want to be braggadocious. You don't want to seem like you're egotistical or that you're selfish, self-centered.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of that. I think it's also a different story for women in general too, that we feel like we can't be so out there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, America Ferrera's speech.
Yes, the Barbie
And the
speech.
Barbie
Yep.
speech.
It's like you have to do this, but you can't do
Yeah.
that. You have to do it. But like that is how it
Yeah.
feels. And I think a lot of people just in general feel that way. And you get kind of run down and bogged down by life, or you have other things that are happening and you define yourself in certain ways that are maybe not helpful.
I think that, one of the things that upsets me the most is people who deal in absolutes.
Yeah.
And I see people and I hear people who try to celebrate themselves. I'm like, yeah, but you're doing it wrong. I don't like when people are like, I'm taking a rest day because I deserve a rest day. And it's like, you're making it work. You're making it. Now it's like you have to feel rested because you're telling yourself you need to feel rested. Just rest. Just go rest. Stop telling yourself you need to do this and just do it. And I think people tell themselves a lot more than they actually do. Same thing with like, I'm a boss babe and I do this, this, and this. Yeah, but like, do you feel sad today? Because that's also okay. You can be both.
Wow, you just got real, man.
I tell, a perfect example, again, me, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I am 4.5 years sober. I made this choice to stop drinking because my life was like super shitty back then. Just because I'm a recovering alcoholic doesn't make me a good person. I'm like, you can do both.
Fair.
You can have things like I still have days where I'm like, that a bad person did that thing today. Like
every moment is a new moment.
Right. So like I what I love to promote is this fluidity of things aren't just
stuck that way forever and ever. They haven't been and they won't be.
Right.
Yeah.
Just be in the moment.
Yep.
Be aware of what's going on. Be celebratory of the fact that you're allowed to feel these feelings.
Yeah.
It doesn't need, and if you're unsure, that's also good. But be aware of that. Everything doesn't need to have an answer. But you can be like, I am alive. This is so fantastic. This is so incredible. I have these amazing people around me. I don't know why I'm sad. I have this great life. I'm super happy about my job. Like it can be all of these things.
Several things at once. Yep.
But
to your point, people like certainty almost. They like they like definitions of things, right? A box or whatever, right? It all ties together.
It's this concept of like, how do we contextualize ourselves? And I think a lot of people, they either tamp themselves down to have an understanding, or they hype themselves up and then feel worse when they don't hit it.
Yep.
And it's like, it can be both.
You can be both. You can be in between. You can be one day and one the other. Yep.
Absolutely. Like I would say that I'm somebody who like worships the grind. I'm one of those villains, But like, it's okay to worship the grind.
Yeah.
But then it's also okay to be like,
I'm burnt. Yeah.
burnt out.
spent out.
Yeah. Whatever. But whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be one thing or the other. I can still say like, I'm figuring this out.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to being in recovery, one thing I love that I figured out this analogy for myself because it helped me a lot is that I compared recovering from being an alcoholic to like getting a new job. I got sober. That's like day one of your new job. Doesn't mean you know everything. You're figuring out as you go.
Right.
Same thing with everything else.
You just made a commitment to something new. Yeah.
Exactly. Same thing with like, okay, you're a parent. Day one of your new job. You're figuring it out. Day one of your new job. You're figuring it out. All these things, like it's okay to figure it out. It's okay to be unsure. It's okay to say, I feel like I've felt this for 10 years and now I don't feel that.
Yeah.
Like I think people don't give themselves permission to be fluid in their emotions. And I have found that I am more certain the less certain I am.
I like that.
I think I love this quote from Bill Nye where he's like, a wise person knows that there's something to be learned from everybody. I love that quote where I'm always looking for something else. I'm like, I don't know everything. And I love that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And going back to your first question, how did my upbringing
like inform who you are.
Shape everything now. One obvious one was race. Race has played a huge part in my life. And one thing that always comes up is when people are like, listen, I get it. Like, you know, I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood. I saw how my friends were treated. And I'd be like, what the fuck do you get? What do you get? What is this? Get it? Like, you don't know anything. My sister's Black and I couldn't ever tell you the first thing about the Black experience. Like, why is it always, I get it. Listen, I get it. You know, I got, you know, my neighbor's cat's Black. Like, I get it. You know, why is it always this, I get it?
Oh, I think there's a yearning for understanding, right?
Yes,
it's so people like, want to almost be like they're on a level.
And the problem is the finish line.
Right.
People feel like, I've got it. I'm there now.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I constantly tell, I'm like, do you know any women? And people are obviously always like, yeah. I'm like, do you know what it's like to feel alone in a parking lot at night? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so
yeah.
Do you feel like you get it to be a woman? Absolutely not. So what in God's name makes you think you get being a different color and going through these things? Like, just because you grew up in a neighborhood doesn't make you understand it. You know, I've got 5 sisters. I would never say, I get it, what it's like that they went through. I would never say to any of my white friends, listen, I get it, what it's like being white. I have no concept. Like, those people who are like, I get it. Oh my God. It like makes my blood boil.
Checks notes, make sure never to say, exactly. I get it.
You're like, since I've got it,
yeah.
I've known you for years. But yeah, like, it's that, again, it's that going back to like people who deal in absolutes.
Yeah.
It's okay to not know. It doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah.
To be like, I don't understand what you went through. That doesn't make you ignorant.
It probably makes you better, right? Because then you're being respectful of someone's own personal journey and experience. And one person's experience as a brown man is different from the next guy's experience as a brown man as well. Like,
yeah, exactly. And like, you know, again, contextualizing it, I talk about adoption all the time. I know what it's like for me to be adopted. I couldn't even tell you what it's like for my sister Nadia to be adopted.
Right.
What her life
and
is
yet you're
like.
in the same household,
We're
right?
all
Like
the same family, same this. I have the perfect life where it's like, I have 3 races under one roof in the same town, and yet I couldn't even begin to tell you what it's like for my siblings
of them.
growing up.
Yep.
Why on earth do you feel like you know what it's like because you went to school with somebody who was a different color?
Yeah.
Like that whole concept of just like move, it's not even like move the finish line further back. Get rid of this whole paradigm of how you think of life. It's not a get it. It's not a understand it. And I think the more people understand that nobody knows anything, nobody knows what they're doing, we're all just figuring it out. That concept, apply that to everything else in your life. Apply that to love. Apply that to your relationship with your parents, with your kids. Nobody knows what we're doing. We're all just figuring it out. It puts us in a better place of like, oh, that leaves me much more open to experience, understanding, input, feedback.
And to being a good member of your own community.
Yes. Absolutely.
For sure.
Like that certainty is, I think, what diminishes and closes off people to this newness of experience.
Yeah.
And like, I love talking to people who are upset about something. And I'm like, be upset. Just fucking be upset. But also like do something about it.
Right.
It can be both.
Right.
You know, like you don't need reasons. I'm like, stop giving me reasons. Just be upset.
Yeah.
You don't need a reason to be upset.
You don't have to validate your own feelings. Yeah. You just are.
Just be aware of the fact that you're upset and then move forward.
Yep.
I don't know what your question was. But.
Thank you for coming to this TED Talk about philosophy and life.
We had about 5 minutes left. So
excellent.
Hot takes.
All right.
Questions.
I want to just segue real quick because this is such a big part of your DNA.
Yes.
The American made.
Yes.
American made, American business. Like, let's string this all back to this podcast, to like how you run your business.
Yeah.
Wrap it all up for us, Matt.
I came from corporate retail where it was very much a box of crap shows up. You sell that box of crap. You get yelled at by people on emails. And then when that box of crap doesn't sell, you put it back in the box and you send it back. And
if you're lucky.
Yeah. It was very just like
transactional.
It was like a factory. Like
machine.
Stuff came out of the wall and you didn't know what was behind the wall, you know? Like it was
gotcha.
There was so much mystery of just like you don't really care what's down the line. When I started working at the boutique store in West Hartford, I got really connected into the small business community. And I started going to the Chamber of Commerce, and I was on the board of the chamber and created a young professional group and all of these different things. And I was like, how cool is it that I could like know a business owner? Like if you go to Starbucks, it's
a real person, right?
There's no concept of like, I'm going to walk into Starbucks and I'll just see the owner mopping the floors or something.
Right.
Like that's not even like a thought. You know, you might be friendly with the manager, but like that manager is 17 years old and they're going to be gone by the end of the week. You know?
Okay, got it.
But in these small businesses, I was like, this is so cool. I get to know these owners.
Right.
And so I was like, wow, I get to know like the cake owner and the dog walker and the electrician and the this and the that and all these people. I was like, but my industry.
Yeah.
I could know the shop owner, but like the products, where do these come from? And people would come in, they'd be like made in Italy and made here and made in Canada. And I was like, why is made in America like not a thing?
Where did it go?
Yeah. So then my
we will tackle that in a future episode.
Yes. So my like history desire for like learning history, I was like, let me dive into this. And so I would do all of this homework. I would read books. I'd watch movies. I'd do all this. I was like, wow, this industry was thriving and then just halted.
What happened?
Just completely disappeared. And I was like, this is fascinating. So one of the things I realized was that people would really highlight individuals in clothing. You know, everybody loves like Tom Ford when he came to Gucci and like the designer.
Right.
And I was like, this is so cool. Like people in this industry could be celebrated for their skills. There was Martin Greenfield, who was the tailor in Brooklyn. He just passed away and he was like escaped from Auschwitz and became like a tailor in Brooklyn and did suits for Obama and Bush and Clinton and all this. Like people can celebrate the human beings making this clothing. Why is no clothing made in America? And I was like, small business is a celebration of our community community and knowing people, and the money stays here, and then learning about how like the local economy works and how small businesses
Right.
are the backbone of
The
your
world
company.
gets real small real quick, doesn't it?
Wow, this is fascinating. So I started to really say like, okay, well, if everybody needs clothing, I can make clothing in America and celebrate those people, and it can connect everybody together. And I remember linking up with I found this factory in Rochester, and I just called them one day and was like, I need you to start talking. Tell me everything about this company. And it was my friend, my now friend Alexa, was the one who answered the phone. She was the daughter of the owner of this factory, and she was like, "Yeah, my grandfather came here, was an Italian tailor, came here, started this little tailor shop, and it's now grown into this massive factory of like 60 tailors. It's still like a glorified tailor shop." But she would tell me all this, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I went up and I visited, and I was like, these are the people making it. Like, this is where it starts and stuff.
You saw the hands actually
the
doing the
hands working
things.
it. And I could go up there and get to know them and like tell the people who are buying the clothing, I would like show them pictures of like, here's your stuff being made like the next state over.
Yeah.
And people
That's the guy.
People felt so connected. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And
now you've woven stories together?
Yes.
What?
Absolutely. And now I'm telling their story also. So when people come and buy a suit from Bard's, they're not just telling their story, they're also telling the story of the garment workers who are making the clothing. That's what I love. It's not, this piece of clothing isn't just a story of the client. It's a story of the people who use their talents, their skills, and their hands to actually bring it together. So it is truly the fabric of America.
And it's the story of you as well, sir.
Yes. I can be the conduit of that. Same thing with like my why. Why am I doing this? It's to tell your story. It's to tell their story. It's to tell whoever's story. I have this perception and ability to bring it out of people. It's because of my unknowing. It's because I don't know anything about you, and let me do everything I can to figure that out. And I know I'm not going to get close, but the best I can do is I can either celebrate you or I can make this garment.
I love that. I think that is a perfect way to end this episode, Matt. Thank you so much for indulging me in all my questions.
Yes, thank you for the question.
Another episode of Fabric of America podcast is down in the books.
Thank you so much, listener, and we look forward to you tuning back in for another episode of the Fabric of America.